Big Age of Empires fan is old Coop. I do also remember Populous on release and the delectable Megalomania, ergonomically terrific. Alpha Centauri from Sid Meier and Populous and Manor Lords are all on Gamepass at the moment, so that's a nice nostalgia buzz, but this is brand new, still in early access and doing really well on the circuit. It's a PRTS, which is a period piece real-time strategy game, and this is the best pan you can get without a joypad. I recently covered that Dune Spice Wars, which has a very similar rollout zoom method, and I love the way that this makes the jump from the overhead map into the actual granular, realistic looking photogenic forests, and it's very European. Slavic Magic is the name of the studio, and it all feels very professionally done. The sounds, the noises, the little birds tweeting. This also comes in with seasons. This game goes from this beautiful sort of tranquility to this. You might be familiar with an Arctic city builder called Frostpunk. I played that over on console. The controls are simplified enough to be able to let that game carry over. And it's a very circular situation, and it's all about quite a lot of moral decision making with your population. Do you allow X? If you do, Y is going to happen, and you're constantly met with menu screens that say stop what you're doing. You need to make a critical decision about what direction your population is going to go in. This does none of that. This is much more like Age of Empires, much more like a traditional RTS. Because of its early status, there is really only kind of 3 main maps and some difficulty sliders and a singular campaign. There's no online multiplayer, but the game is so interesting both visually because of how grounded it seems within its genre and its mechanics when it comes to actual fighting. It's got a full-blown troop management and combat system, which I'll show you in a second. But I just want to go through some of this stunning detail. It's actually very intricately designed, and a lot of the NPCs are walking around getting on with stuff. It's well animated, very healthy looking game. Still is, however, a big emphasis on food and fuel, and you're essentially a farming village, so you're building fields, baking bread, getting flour, even getting livestock in to help increase the population, which essentially is the lifeblood to the size of your potential army. It falls back on that mechanic of citizen requirement, a little bit like Black and White. They need to be very happy, so you have to put things like churches down, make sure they've got all their amenities, kind of like that theme park angle, and then you'll see the houses like fill up themselves. So there's quite a lot of back work to do and prep to make sure that villagers actually come along and settle in your new town. I do love its snap mechanic, really simple, very well designed. The control scheme is extremely flush and modern. There's not too much confusing stuff going on. Those menus at the top are all pretty standard stuff, and I like the way that you can get literally down on the ground on a single button press. This is still getting worked out, but you can walk around third person. That's actually really cool. Not first person yet, not full Kingdom Come Deliverance, but it's still an amazing little area of the game to explore because you get to see a street from eye level almost, and all your designs and placements. It really hits home, especially in the summer. This game comes with full seasonal mechanics. Back to that farming subject, it's really quite intricate on the timing system about when to pull a harvest in. You can even instigate it early, and there's a lot of trade-off to be had with wheat and what particular crop you buy. Staying on the subject of crops, food and seasonal change, your first sort of hurdle is surviving a year. In Age of Empires you would have been attacked by a load of Aztecs by now, but you get the chance to sort of dig in a bit, and the winter is your first real enemy. Stockpiling and thinking about things in advance is definitely a mechanic that needs to be thought about, and the idea of having an appreciation / approval rating, which is represented by a percentage on that top bar. You may have people leave, people may die, people may starve, and if your families go, you can't run a lot of your infrastructure. So your village is only as big as the amount of people you've got in it, because you have to allocate a singular family to each structure. Even the stockpiling, or even something like running the windmill, will take a family member. So this allocation is key, but it's also pretty cool because farming season will come up, spring will come in, you can lift loads of people off collecting berries and put them onto the harvest for the farming. It's got some crazy seasonal meta going on. The transformation of your village also when it's full winter is very cool. These are definitely European, i.e. East European winters, because they go full on from December right up until mid to end of Feb. So it's pretty cool to actually have a concrete snow section within that calendar. Not like England anymore. We'll have a few attempts, a little bit like StarCraft. There's that starter amount of resource that you can utilize in different directions to then spend loads of money on having crops growing early or even getting livestock in. But I went with the stripped down, very efficient, keep the numbers low. You can get too much population. Then the winter comes in and you haven't put the infrastructure in to feed them all, thus also equaling disaster. There's this weird sort of middle ground where you incrementally expand, get new families in, and then have the manpower to start increasing your technology. Keeping on that sort of build / loadout analogy, every so often you'll reach a threshold and you'll get the chance to actually add some different perk in any direction on this sort of larger chart. Very cool. You can start excelling certain areas if you're familiar with them, but you can also lean towards combat or weapon development.
Watch your head there.
Let's talk troops. I got you up to the 7-minute mark. This is one of my favourite parts of the game, and what really sold me was seeing the screens or seeing the clips of those swords clashing, the armours out in the middle of the fields, in the middle of nowhere. It seemed quite an attractive idea for an RTS, and it certainly does work. You heard me talking about getting invaded by Aztecs on Age of Empires. There are bandits that will steal your stuff, and you have to sort of scout around, look for their camps, and you can take them on. It's pretty cool, but not as cool as the big regional full-on battles that occur mid to late game.
Pick up the pace, quickly! Move quickly! Pick up the pace! Yes, sire!
It also tackles that scary idea of every household, the male is the fighter and will have the armour and sword within their house, and then you call to rally, everyone goes and gets their gear, and then they meet at the point. So there's a slight delay on getting your troops ready, but back to the point of population, your army is only as big as the amount of families you've attracted into your village. So there's this back end that you've got to keep the population up or even expand it full stop to be able to get enough troops to be able to take on the other guy who's in that map section next door to you.
Pick up the pace!
There's a surprising amount of commands. It's really cool. You have different platoon types. You can start leaning into range. You get given like a spearman starter pack, and you just go after the bandits if they start taking your stuff and eventually take over their camp and steal their stuff. It's how it works. Just like on that load-in title screen with the castle and the guy on the horse with the like awesome saddle and upgraded helmet, that is coming up. It doesn't start you with all that amazing gear, and that's the sort of top-end manor is the essential medieval castle that you see in that first screen. That is definitely, this is what you can win if you throw a bunch of hours at this game, which is an extremely easy thing to do. I happen to thoroughly enjoy playing this game. On that June Spice Wars, the longer your troops are out, exposed in that desert, the sort of worse they are at fighting. And this has got a little bit of that mechanic with a fatigue meter, and everything always happens miles away from your base, and you guys have got to get there before they even start fighting. There is some thought put behind that. If you wait, you kind of recover a bit, so it helps to have troops in position, waiting if something's going to come in. It might be a bandit camp, or it might even be a massive invasion from that dude next door. The combat, you know, it's not Total War 3, but it doesn't feel forced or like a soulless transaction like you would get on some turn-based RTS games. This is absolutely excellent that they've included it, and it really does incentivize you to start looking for rare metals, getting the levers going, and starting to develop all of your advanced weaponry and get those horses and knights out, because that's the promised land. So far, because I'm so inefficient with what I'm doing on that campaign, I'm well behind the other guy on troop count, and sometimes they'll just come out of the woods. You always see them on map though. It's not like you've got that fog of war you have to scout for moving troops. It will straight out warn you that there's an army coming out, or there's a county being contested. That's another thing. You get a countdown and you all meet up and just go out for a massive war. It must sound like I'm just piling on the mechanics here, and I am to a certain extent. I just want to get it across that there's so much on the plate of this game that you're spoiled for choice about what to eat first. And it really does have that medieval manor building survival feel. At the same time, its combat is just as good, if not better in places, than Age of Empires. It's got more complication and options. So definitely variety to be had there. I need more time with it, to be fair. It also managed itself on Gamepass day one, which is a really good sign. It means it's going to be around for a while, and we're going to see a bit more put in, and there may be some PvP. I'm not too sure what the roadmap says in that direction, but just more of this. Difference in variety on map type would be awesome, but that campaign has got 150 hours plus in it easily now in early access. Have you played it, and what do you think? Have you played that Spice Wars RTS game that's also available on Game Pass? And I've also had in the pipeline for a couple of months the idea of doing a StarCraft 2 video, because I still play that damn game. And Blizzard have just changed very much. The world's a very different place to what it was when that game came out. Free to play, and it's probably something you should look at if you're remotely interested in RTS. This was back when Blizzard knew how to make a video game. Was of course Lord Couch Coop of the Manor, and I will be looking forward to seeing you down there.
I'll go deaf from all that hammering.